Hello, everyone. Today we are here with Stephen,
Yeah.
and Stephen is the proud grandfather of a granddaughter who's just under 3 years old. Stephen, could you share with us what you were like, perhaps as a father yourself,
Mm-hmm.
before you had a child and after you had a child? So,
Mm-hmm.
you, the father,
Mm-hmm.
what were you like?
What was I like? That's a good question. I felt when before I was a father and after my child arrived, pretty much the same. How I was like, I'm soft spoken,
Mhm.
but very relational. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
From the outset, I think I was looking forward uh, to the arrival of my first child. Yeah.
mm, mm.
And so I would say emotionally, I was quite ready, yeah, to receive my firstborn. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
And so now that you're a grandfather,
hmm
has anything changed? Are you still the soft-spoken person?
I think I'm more outspoken now than before. For example, when uh, I answer a question like this, I said, actually, innately, I'm an introvert. And if my wife were to be around, she would say, no way. Yeah. But
Mm,
yeah, naturally, I'm an introvert.
mm,
Even as a grandfather, I still feel I'm an introvert, but I love spending time and relating with my granddaughter.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm,
I recall when my father became grandfather, how he lovingly wanting to spend time and always wanting to carry my children when they were young. You can see the joy in his face.
mm.
The love just oozes out, the joy. I can see myself doing that now with my just one granddaughter. Mm.
When your father became a grandfather, yes,
Yes.
what would be one of uh, the family values that you feel that even at your father's level has passed on to you, and how you want to pass on to your own adult children and grandchildren?
Yes. So I am really fortunate to have a very good father who loves his family and was very involved, spent a lot of time with the family. The priority is always the family. And so the one of the key family values would be spending quality family time across the generations.
Mm,
So from my father to his children and his grandchildren.
mm,
And so when my father was around, every weekend is family time. So keeping a very closely knitted family and building strong family across the generations
mm,
is, I would say, a very important family value.
mm. So having family time together as
Yeah.
a family is an endearing value.
Yes.
Could you share with us maybe one or two events or activities that your family does to ensure that this bonding is cultivated, becomes stronger over the years?
Yeah.
What's a favorite family pastime that you guys do together?
Family pastime would be having family meals together.
Meals.
Yes. So my dad, he worked full time, but on weekends he'll be the one in the kitchen, and he
Oh,
would love to cook for the entire family. And of course, we love his cooking, which was very good.
mm,
Uh, However, I'm not a good cook. I don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Uh, Also, because my wife says in the kitchen there's only room for either the queen or the king. So if the queen is always in the kitchen, then the king gives space, gives room for the queen. So my wife is a very good cook,
she is
and she
good.
does that every weekend,
Mm,
so that the family can gather together for family time.
mm.
Yeah.
So for a whole family to come together to have a meal over the table together is something very important
Yeah.
to maintain
Yes.
good family bonding.
Yeah. But on top of that is we don't just have meals on the weekend. So we have family meals every day, actually. Every day. So one of the family values is that my wife would intentionally uh, time the family dinner every day, such that only when I return home, came back home from work, then we start dinner together. So we wait for each other.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's a very key family value that's been passed down from my dad. Yeah. So we're still practicing that today.
Stephen, could I ask, within this very closely knit family that you have described, were there any challenges that you faced in between the generations, either perhaps a conflict between, say, you and your adult children over how your grandchild is being looked after, and how did you overcome if there was such a situation?
Yeah. I think for us, we would not call it conflict. It will be difference across the generation, because the current generation, they are a lot more educated and knowledgeable because of media, right? And so they actually learn more from Google, from Googling, maybe now more from AI as well. Then rather than seeking advice or counsel from us, from the grandparents. And so, but we're also learning new things from them. So there are a lot of differences in how they want to discipline the kid, how they want to, even in provisions like food, when to start weaning, when to introduce, solid food, when what to eat, what not to eat. And so what we do is this: how do we manage these differences? I won't call it conflict, but so we give each other room and space and respect as well. And so as grandparents, we very intentionally and consciously give room for our children who are first time parents to discover, to learn on their own. Only if and when they need advice or tips from us, then we offer. We will not share or tell them what to do. So oftentimes we realize they actually learn from Google, from the internet, from reading, and also from their peers. Yeah, sometimes they will say, we're a different generation. This is how we do it this way today. So we respect that, and we give them room and space to grow into parenthood.
As a grandparent or as a parent yourself who has successfully raised your own children, you would certainly have a view that my way is the right way.
Of course.
Wouldn't you feel you want to teach your own children
Yes.
that this is a good way to be a parent? So how did you really manage that emotion to allow your own children to experiment what parenthood is?
So for me, I partner very closely with my wife as grandparents, as grandfather, as grandmother. So a lot of times we would talk about all these differences with our children, the way they parent their kid, behind closed doors.
Oh.
Yes, many times it's pillow talk, and we we exchange notes, and we say, why do they do it this way, so different from us? And of course, as parents, we want to help our children, and in some cases, sort of in a way protect them from making the mistakes that we went through and learn the lessons. So a lot of times we are very eager to impart the lessons we learn from our own parenting, from our own parenthood to them. But we need to be discerning to know that when is the right time to do that. or if they are seeking for that. You see what I'm saying? So we don't want to thumb down, so-called, and say, okay, we've been there, we've done it. This is we can download or share this experience with you, so that you don't have to make the mistakes and learn. You can learn faster this way, but sometimes it's not welcome.
Oh,
yeah,
can you describe an incident where it was not welcome, and how did you overcome that?
Well, even like in terms of discipline, for example, like even the use of the cane.
Discipline.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the current generation would not go through the cane. Yeah, to discipline. And sometimes we say, well, we need to start discipline when the kid begin to misbehave, like in the twos and threes, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are discovering. Sometimes it's not just verbal, but you really need to discipline. You need to discipline, but discipline with love.
And it's still without the cane for your grandchild. How did you manage to control and prevent yourself from insisting that the cane has to be used?
We don't insist. So this is where respect comes in.
Respect.
Yeah, respect. Yeah, respect is very crucial, because this is where we respect their decision, their way of discipline, which is different, and so we do not insist. Yeah, we do not insist.
That's wonderful advice. So I hear there is
so
respect.
I would then turn around and instead advise that we need to discipline with love, just like speaking the truth in love. Without love, the discipline will be harsh, will be punishing. Yeah, so there's long-term implications of that on the child. For example, anger management, right? Self-control of our emotions. Yeah, especially when the kid becomes hysterical or even misbehave. This is where the challenge is. This is a real test of parenthood. Or when the kid is unwell. Yeah. So you're being stressed and being stretched. Yeah.
So what would happen in your family when your grandchild is a bit hysterical, is screaming, and you know that the cane is not the right solution? So what would you or your children do in order to support this child?
So what we would do as grandparents, so in this case, our case was because this family still lives with us while waiting for their BTO to be available. And so when we see a situation like this, we have to exercise a lot of restraint, a lot of self-control. It is so tempting to want to jump in and help. It's so tempting. Yeah. In on many occasions. But then we have to keep reminding ourselves to wait, to hold back, and see how the situation develops, and come in at the right time, or come in we feel it's the right time to come in, so that we will not be interfering too much.
It sounds like there needs to be a lot of self-control from the grandparent, a lot of mutual respect for your adult children, a lot of communication and speaking in love, and even humility. To feel that I would let my children learn on his or her own rather than I teach everything I want to teach. Those are fantastic ways to be a grandparent.
Yeah, so in turn, we also learn from our children in the parenthood of the young child, because a lot of what they are able to practice today is very different from our generation in our growing up years, and how we were being parented when we were a kid. Very different. Yeah. So we are learning, if not unlearning and relearning some of these
Mm.
practices,
Mm.
which is good. So another point would be we need to be open-minded.
Mm.
Yeah, we need to be open-minded. No matter how much experiences we have in parenthood, we need to be open and humble
Mm.
to
After all,
learn.
when we were parents
Yes.
ourselves, it was also our first time when we
Yes.
were parents ourselves. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen, may I also hear your thoughts about what are the differences in the role that a grandfather has and the role that a grandmother has
Mm.
in a context of your kind of family?
For me, I feel it's not much different from a father and a mother's role in terms of grandfather and grandmother. But my own experience and my own take is that we are always in partnership.
Mm.
Sometimes we like to call it tag team,
Mm.
tag teaming. So my wife and I continues our partnership into grandparenting, from parenting to grandparenting. As in, I'm still very involved. Yeah, I'm very involved in taking care of my granddaughter from birth because they live with us from birth. She's been with us every day.
Mm.
And so because I'm retired from my corporate work, so I'm at home quite a fair bit, even though I was doing volunteering work and stuff. But I very intentionally make time to be involved in my granddaughter's life from day one.
Mm.
So much so that my wife even commented that I'm actually, she see that I was actually changing diapers more and feeding milk more and reading storybooks more with my one granddaughter than I did with my three children.
Mm. Well, we all learn to become better
Yes.
parents
Yeah.
in the next generation. Yeah.
So and now she's just under 3 years old. She's going to the play school every day, and play school is just a stone throw away from our home.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to every morning going to her room, see her waking up and greeting me. Good morning, Grandpa. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll end up changing her diaper, changing her into her school clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and then walk her to school
Mm.
after feeding her a breakfast.
Mm.
So it's such a joy.
Oh, it
Yeah.
sounds. I would want to be your grandchild.
So I'm very active, partnering with the grandmother.
Mm.
So we take turns because sometimes the kid will wake up and has a different mood. Say, today I want grandma only. I want Popo only. So the grandpa has to step aside.
Ah, okay.
You
So
know?
that's where
So
the
I cannot
tag
insist,
team.
no, it's me or
Yeah.
nothing, you know?
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Is there a role that your wife plays as a grandmother that is very unique to just her as a grandmother?
So that would be in food, in cooking.
Food. Okay.
Yeah. Because of mother instincts or even grandmother. So I would say my wife still has it in her. She has the instinct. Say for example, when the kid is not feeling well or not in a good mood, the mother instinct will come in to play better than the father or grandfather. They will understand or able to pick that up. Very discerning, I would say. Pick that up much faster. Yeah, and know what to do. So they will
Excellent.
intervene more effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I believe
Yeah.
there's a role for both
Oh yes,
grandfather
yes,
and
definitely.
grandmother. Yes.
Yeah.
Stephen, could I also have your views on how, in a family context, what are the benefits of a grandfather becoming a positive role model? What are the benefits for a family that you have seen in
Yeah.
your own family?
Yeah. So being a good role model, even as grandfather or as grandparents, is very, very key. I see that. So back to your earlier point about how do we deal with conflicts or differences, I think that's opportunity for role modeling. Yeah, and also being a very active and involved grandparents is part of the role modeling. Yeah, and so even at our stage, we don't take the view of okay, our role as grandparents will be just to play with them, have fun with them, and pamper them or spoil them, and leave everything else to the parents, to undo and so on. No, we don't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe in that. We believe in being involved, even as grandparents, especially in imparting the right values, right family values, and modeling the right um, behavior, the good way of parenting, but not insisting, but modeling. So even when we take over to help out, to take care of the kid, we are modeling to them how you do it.
Absolutely. So this is one role that grandparents can play
Yes.
to be a positive role model for the next and the even next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Steve,
fact, one more thing to add to your earlier question about the different the grandfather role and the grandmother role. I'm just suddenly thinking of playtime. So my granddaughter loves to go to the playground and play. And I found that actually the grandfather, like in my case, doing more of that compared to the grandmother. So I think fathers, men are naturally designed or built to play with kids. Somehow the kids will come to the father or the grandfather and say, I want to play. I want to go to the playground. I want to play my toys. I want to play Lego or whatever. Yeah.
So
More, I'm not saying mothers or grandmothers don't do that, but comparatively, you'll be the father or the grandfather. More of that.
So that sounds like a very
Yeah.
clear difference between how men are built to play with children
Yeah.
and women are more designed to nurture and to care
Yeah.
in very specific roles. Yeah. Stephen, is there a piece of advice that you could share with our viewers? What is one or two things that they can do, given that all of us as grandparents, we want to become better grandparents? What would be that piece of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Um, yeah, so that's a good question. And just before this, Shanton, you mentioned about nurturing the children, the kids. So that is oftentimes a role that fathers or even grandfathers so-called delegate to the mothers, grandmothers, the nurturing role. But actually, that is also a very critical role for the fathers and grandfathers. So I'm also a volunteer with Center for Fathering. So I'm actually an associate trainer in running a fathering workshop called ICAN, ICAN. So I is for involvement, being a very involved father or involved grandparent. Consistency, that's the C, being very consistent and predictable, creating a family environment where the child will feel safe, able to know what to expect every time they come to the grandparents or to the parents. And then being aware, I feel that being grandparents, we are even more aware because of our experiences, our journey in fatherhood, parenthood. We are actually even more aware of the child's needs, of the child's world, what they want and what they need than before. And then last but not least, the N, ICAN, the N, the nurturance, which is the role of the grandparents, not just grandmothers, but or mothers, but also the fathers and grandfathers. Yeah, nurturance, right? Knowing their emotional needs and meeting their emotional needs, making sure that the emotional tank, the love tank, is filled.
Yes, to ensure that the love tank is filled.
Yeah.
I hear that there need not be drawing of a line between grandfather or grandmother because both will play a critical role
Yes.
in ICAN for the sake of the grandchildren.
Yeah. So I love to give father hugs, but I love to give grandfather hugs. So every morning, even if I'm walking my granddaughter to her play school, or if I'm not because the grandma she chose the grandmother, I will still be at the door and say, give grandpa or give Kong Kong a big hug. Yeah. To express, the love and to affirm her of our love for her. So that's part of mentoring, right? And role modeling to children as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
certainly that's what we as grandparents can do. Thank you very much, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Say.
Thank you.